For this question, we will subtract the expression m minus 6 over 15m squared minus 30m plus 15 from m plus 2 over 5m squared minus 25m plus 20. So to do this, we will first factor our denominators and then try to find a lowest common denominator. Our first denominator factors to 5 times m minus 1 times m minus 4. Our second denominator factors to 15 times m minus 1 squared, which also will help us to determine our lowest common denominator. Now, to determine our lowest common denominator, what we'll do is consider each of the factors in turn. The first factor is the integer 5 or 15. Given those, our lowest common multiple will be 15, so that'll be a factor of one of our lowest common denominator. Now, the factor m minus 1 appears once in the first denominator and twice in the second. We're going to take the greater of those two, and we're going to take two factors of m minus 1 for our lowest common denominator. And finally, the factor m minus 4 appears once in the first numerator, once in the first denominator, and never in the second denominator, so it will appear once in our denominator. We always take the greatest of those options. So again, m minus 1 appears once here and twice here, so we take 2. m minus 4 appears once here and 0 times here, so we take 1. And this is our lowest common denominator. It's good here at this time to state our restrictions. M cannot equal 1 and m cannot equal 4. So at this time, we are able to say that our denominators should be 15m minus 1 squared times m minus 4 and 15m minus 1 squared times m minus 4. And we want to see now what our numerator should be. We should have written our denominators down first. Well, what should our numerators be? We ask ourselves what new factors we introduced to the denominator here. We started with a denominator of 5 times m minus 1 times m minus 4, ended up with a denominator of 15 times m minus 1 quantity squared times m minus 4. So we must have multiplied the original denominator here by 3 and by m minus 1. By 3 and by m minus 1. So we should multiply our numerator by 3 and by m minus 1. And we did that. Now, looking at our next denominator, we started with a denominator of 15 times m minus 1 squared. But our lowest common denominator is 15 times m minus 1 squared times m minus 4. So we must have introduced a new factor of m minus 4. Well, we're going to do the same thing to the numerator. So our original numerator is m minus 6. So it will become m minus 6 times m minus 4. And so we now have written out our expression with the lowest common denominators. At this point, we can expand and collect in the first numerator, expand and collect in the second numerator. And this is what we get. Now, because we have the same denominator in two different rational expressions, we keep that denominator in place, and we are going to expand and collect like terms. And I say expand and collect like terms because there's always a bracket implied in this first numerator, and this minus sign is to be distributed to the terms in that second numerator. So it might be convenient to put a bracket around it. And remember that we need to distribute this minus sign to each of the terms in that second numerator. Okay? So we do that in the next line. We have our first numerator minus our second numerator over the lowest common denominator, and after collecting like terms, we get this to be our final answer. Notice our denominator hasn't changed. We've simply been working in the numerator. At this point, we should see if this factors. If our numerator factors, we might be able to reduce a little bit further. In this case, it doesn't. And this is our final answer. Note the restrictions.